We don't read and write poetry because it's cute. We read and write poetry because we are members of the human race. And the human race is filled with passion.
If you've seen Dead Poets Society, then you know the kind of impact this film leaves on you. It's inspiring, it's moving, it challenges your soul. It's exactly what a great piece of art should be. And one of the themes that Dead Poets Society wrestles with is the role that beauty, art, and love should play in our lives.
But poetry, beauty, romance, love, these are what we stay alive for.
I think on some level we know there's truth in that statement, even though it isn't exactly obvious why it's true. So let's dive into that question. What role should passions play in our lives? It might be good to start by establishing what we mean when we say passions. When you think of the passions in your own life, you might think of your favorite hobby, someone you're passionate about, or perhaps a piece of art or entertainment. And you could be passionate about any of those things, because a passion is really just a feeling that makes you inclined towards something. In Dead Poets Society, we have a few examples of young men developing passions for various things. First, we have Neil, who has a passion for acting.
Yes! Yes! I'm gonna be an actor. Ever since I can remember, I wanted to try this.
Second, we have Knox, who takes an interest in women.
Can I help you?
Hi.
And then we have Todd, who doesn't have any particular passion at all.
Todd, you coming tonight? No.
His story is more of one coming to the realization that it's okay to have passions and to care deeply about something. So what's the deal with these passions? Are they good? Are they distractions? Do they matter? Dead Poets Society wrestles with these questions. On one hand, we have some characters that show the viewpoint that young men need structure. They need to be told what to pursue and to ignore their passions.
Show me the heart unfettered by foolish dreams, and I'll show you a happy man. You take a big risk by encouraging them to become artists, John.
And this idea isn't completely unreasonable. Often passions of young men lead them to foolish things. Not all things are worth pursuing. And on the other hand, we have a character encouraging the students to be free thinkers. Robin Williams' character, Mr. Keating, spends the film encouraging the boys to break out of their conforming ways and to think for themselves and dare to have their own beliefs.
Now, my class, you will learn to think for yourselves again.
And these opposing worldviews, one that says the boys should follow the guidance of their elders, and the other that says they should think for themselves, become the two worldviews that the students engage with throughout the film. In the beginning, the students are conformists. They proudly partake in the school's traditions and learn what is prescribed. And by the end, some disobey the guidance of their elders and do what they believe is right. So does the film tell us to be free thinkers, doing whatever our passions desire? No, it actually takes a nuanced stance, one that is necessary for an optimal life.
See, there's a time for daring, and there's a time for caution. And a wise man understands which is called for.
But I thought you'd like that.
No.
It's not that passions are inherently good or bad, but one must know when to pursue them and when to set them aside. And to know how to be wise enough to do that, we'll have to look into the question, why do we have passions? Passions are our body's way of encouraging us to reach for something. It's part of our human instinct to reach for greatness. It may even be subconscious. We may not know that it leads to our greatness or the bettering of our lives, but often if we dig into our psychology, we will find that our passions usually tend to be the things that better our lives.
For me, sport is actually a chance for us to have other human beings push us to excel.
So, passions are our subconscious's longing for something that usually leads to our greatness, but just because our subconscious leads us in that direction, it doesn't mean it's always the best. There are times we become passionate about things that no longer serve to better us. I like to think of our passions as advice from our own body. It's often good advice, but just like the advice from others, it's not always correct. One must weigh all the options, all the advice from all the sources, and choose an optimal path.
Now, when you read, don't just consider what the author thinks. Consider what you think.
See, the benefit of being a free thinker is not that you can do whatever you desire, whatever your body's telling you to do, but you have your own thoughts and considerations as an option in addition to what the rest of the world offers as an option. Only then can you have the opportunity to break away from the normal path that the rest of society takes when your option is actually different and better. And then you can reach something that's perhaps extraordinary. But what happens if we're no longer able to be a free thinker? What if all our plans are laid out for us and we're not allowed to consider other options, particularly our own passions?
After you finish medical school and you're on your own, then you can do as you well please. But until then, you do as I tell you.
The story examines this scenario with the character Neil. Neil's journey begins as a young man following his father's guidance, but with the introduction of Mr. Keating's teachings, he begins to think for himself and discover what he is passionate about. However, this passion for acting leads to his father taking disciplinary action.
Tomorrow I'm withdrawing you from Welton and enrolling you in Brayton Military School. You're going to Harvard, and you're going to be a doctor.
That's 10 more years. Father, that's a lifetime!
Stop it!
This restriction of his free will leads to a tragic end for Neil, as he's unable to bear a life without being able to pursue his passion. Now, many would be delighted to go down the path that the father has prescribed, as it will lead to a successful life. But the thing is, not everyone has the same desires. Some want to become rich, others want to change the world, some want to have a family. Not all of us have the same goal in mind. What the father considers a successful life, Neil does not see as living a great life. And Neil, like all of us, long to live a great life. And to have that opportunity stripped away from him causes a deep pain, one that becomes unbearable. And just to be clear, Neil's final decision was not good. It's understandable as to why he hated his situation, but that does not justify it. As Mr. Keating would say,
What about carpe diem and sucking all the marrow out of life?
Sucking the marrow out of life doesn't mean choking on the bone.
Now, similar to Neil, we have another character named Knox, who develops a passion for a woman he's not allowed to be with, as she already has a boyfriend. Now, Knox, just like Neil again, continues to pursue his passion and ends up in trouble when he's caught.
Next time I see you, you die.
And despite being discovered for pursuing a passion that's not welcome, Knox continues the pursuit of his passion, much like Neil after his father told him not to attend the play. And both of them are discovered a second time, leading to a dead end in the pursuit of their passion. Neil is being sent to military school and Knox is officially rejected by the girl. But the key difference here is that Knox takes his loss in stride.
Hey, how'd it go? Did you read it to her? Yeah. Oh, what'd she say?
Nothing.
Nothing? What do you mean, nothing?
Nothing. But I did it.
To Knox, it wasn't so much about obtaining the passion, it was about the philosophy of living life to the fullest. And he loved the new man he had become under the new philosophy of carpe diem, meaning seize the day.
What did she say? You gotta say something! You're nuts! Seize the day!
So we've covered what passions are, why we have them, and we've seen them played out with a couple of the characters, but we haven't answered the question, why do we live for our passions? The film explores this question through its main protagonist, Todd Anderson. Todd is much more hesitant to Mr. Keating's philosophy, much more than Knox and Neil. See, Todd is reluctant to join the Dead Poet Society, and when tasked with coming up with an original poem, he gives up, too worried about what may happen if he dares to share an original thought. Todd's struggle is not one of being suppressed by others, but by himself. We see in Todd a character who has a decent path set up for him, one that he doesn't particularly dislike, but he lacks passion, and it's worth stating that people can survive without passion, but to thrive, to excel, to find breakthroughs in your work, that often comes from passion. And that's because our passions tend to center around the novel, the new, the things we desire but do not yet have. Think about the things that you have been most passionate about. The peak of your passion for a person, thing, or idea is often at the beginning, when it's new. And after we get what we want from that passion, those feelings often fade. Not always completely, but slowly over time they do. And that's because we are called to search for new, novel experiences that will keep us from stagnating. Our passions fade so that we can move on from what we've already experienced and search for new things. Chasing your passion is perpetual growth. And just to clarify something, while passions do wane, that doesn't mean always abandoning them in search for something new. Sometimes it just means diving deeper into them and innovating within the passion, finding new passions within the old. You don't always have to quit a job once it's boring, but maybe you can tack on additional responsibilities and try to find a new way to add value. Because passions are all about doing what leads to greatness, and sometimes that means sticking with something, like a loved one. So how does Todd's journey unravel? Todd follows along with the rest of the group for most of the film and even has moments of breakthrough when his teacher helps him. But when the school asks the boys to sign a letter that would effectively result in Mr. Keating's termination, Todd and the rest of the boys submit to the request. But in an inspiring turn of events, as the film comes to a close, Todd dares to stand on top of his desk, showing Mr. Keating that he's willing to see things from his own point of view. He no longer accepts the path given to him from the leaders, but instead makes a stand for what he believes is right. And in this situation, it's telling the truth to Mr. Keating that he still has his respect and that his teaching has made a positive difference. Todd's passionate outburst at the end signifies he's willing to engage in his own true thoughts. And it's these kind of passions that enable living life to the fullest by encouraging the pursuit of something new and different. And when you do that, you might leave a mark on this world, or as Mr. Keating would say,
The powerful play goes on, and you may contribute a verse. What will your verse be?
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to support this channel, the best way is to check out my novel, The Fall of Man. And as for this channel, we'll continue to examine great films. Thanks for stopping by.